All right, here we go. Back in action after the holiday break. I'm here with someone I didn't even know when we met, man. It was like 3 years ago when I was in Michigan.
Yeah, it was a few years back when I was still coaching club at a Region 5 high-tech camp. Yeah.
Wow, back in the day, man. But how,
Uh-huh.
how far we've come, huh? But I'm here with Ohio State coach Lucas Wasson, who I've wanted to get on the podcast for a long time, but our schedules didn't align. So here we are. How are your holidays? Everything was good?
Everything was great. Yeah, I got home and saw some fam in New York and back here ready to get the ball rolling this season. And we'll start on the 11th at home at the Cavelli Arena. Yeah, the new
Nice. That'll be fun.
yeah, at Ohio State. We're pretty excited.
Sweet. Well, I think looking at the metrics in the podcast, people always want to hear from college coaches. They admire what you guys do. They obviously, a lot of kids want to get to that level, but I think that you're very unique because you have kind of worn a lot of different hats, so to speak. You were just saying you were in the JO side of things, and then now you're in the college side of things. And so I wanted to get you on the podcast because I have a lot of questions about the differences there and kind of how you approach your philosophy and things like that. So I guess the first place to start is, can you just give people a short background on, where you came up through coaching and then how you were in the JO side and how you got to Ohio State?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a kind of, I think, a little bit of a unique path compared to some of the other college coaches who were college athletes themselves. But I was a very average gymnast at best, and
Same.
started coaching in high school as a part-time job. I was always kind of enjoyed working with kids and stuff. So my coaches at the time were like, "Hey, help out." And so I think I started as like a freshman in high school, just helping out classes, and then from there, started coaching team. By the time I graduated, I originally went to school to teach in Buffalo, at Buffalo State. And so while I was in college, started coaching, nines and tens a little bit, helping out the other coaches and learning how to spot and that sort of thing. And then after my sophomore year of school, I went to IGC camp for the whole summer to coach, and came back and was like, all right, I was going to teach math. Instead, it seemed like a better idea to kind of teach, gymnastics, where I was passionate about it. And yeah, that's kind of where everything started to grow, where I decided, you know what, this is what I want to pursue. So I actually, after my junior year of school, during that year, I started to just apply for coaching jobs. I went on a vacation to Florida and went on an interview there while I was there. It kind of worked out. And then when I came back in the spring that year, I had a message on my parents' answering machine that a small club in Dayton that doesn't exist was looking for a team director. So I went to that interview and got that job and was the team director. I had just turned 21 and didn't really know a whole lot, but I knew that I loved coaching and that I wanted to pursue it. And that kind of started off everything. So I was there for 2 years, had some decent success. Was just kind of learning on the fly a lot, but watching all those Elite Coaches Association VHS tapes and congresses and stuff. And then went to Buckeye and got hired on that, incredible staff that, as Kitty Carpenter, who's been there for, 25 plus years, and Lily at the time was coaching and just kind of come from China. And so learned a great deal from them, and they were really pursuing elite gymnastics at Buckeye. And so I had the opportunity to coach athletes and help develop, like Mia Dennis, who's at UCLA right now. Jenna Swartzentruber was kind of on that path, and she's an Ohio State gymnast now, which is kind of cool. I was coaching her from 7 to 12 years old, and then, years later, here I'm coaching her at Ohio State. But Buckeye was kind of fully established. There was a lot of coaches there who were doing great things, and I was still kind of learning and growing as a coach. So I knew I needed kind of a place where I could kind of all the things that were in my head that I wanted to do, I wasn't necessarily able to implement those things. So I was like, all right, Enrique Trabanino, who I kind of got to know through some of the developmental camps and TOPS camps and stuff. He was coaching with Mary Lee Tracy at the time, but then kind of went off and started Perfection Gymnastics School in Cincinnati, and he was looking for some help. So I think a year after he had opened Perfection, I went down there, and the club was still kind of in its infancy, with maybe 25, 30 kids on team and another 50 kids in the, rec program. That summer I got there, it was super tiny, and we just had a lot of fun together. And I would say, the influence that Enrique has had on my coaching career and just me as a man. I mean, he's such a great guy, and that's where I was really able to develop and hone, I think, my core philosophies and kind of turn into the coach that I feel I am today. So after 6 years, and that last year before I left, we really started to kind of get things moving in a direction I think that we all thought it would go, and so it was kind of hard to walk away after having half a dozen kids at JOs, and there's 8 kids at level 9s, and we're doing some great things and feeling really good about the direction of the program. But when I was coaching at Buckeye, Randy Monahan, who's the other assistant currently at Ohio State, he was just graduated from Ohio State. He was a gymnast, great gymnast, 2-time all-around Big Ten champ, and but he was kind of still training, so his part-time job was coaching at Buckeye as well. So he and I had known each other for quite a while, and when Kerry Fagan, the former head coach, moved up into the administration and Meredith got hired, Meredith Paul Civic, he's like, what do you think about Luke? I've known him for a long time, and I had met Meredith a few times just in the JO world and stuff as well. And it just seemed like an opportunity I certainly couldn't pass up. And I think what's the coolest part about the story that I feel is that, I left actually finishing my education to pursue coaching, but now coaching brought me back and allowing me the opportunity to finish school at Ohio State, which is a great university. And so I'm getting close, probably, but this time next year I'll be done, and looking forward to kind of, wrapping that part up. And so that's kind of, now I'm in my 3rd season here at Ohio State. It's going great.
I love it, man. I love hearing people's backstories because, you never really know the full thing. And you hear it, that's awesome, right? Definitely a shout out to Meredith, who is amazing. And I actually met Meredith first at Utah when I was out there doing some Con Ed work. So I was happy to see her kind of move along. But couldn't be a better team you guys have over there. And I think I didn't put this question on the sheet, but it sounds like 2 themes that you had were definitely mentorship and then always just seeking out education. Are there other things that you think are super important that coaches need to be doing to continue developing their careers or stuff? I think a lot of coaches right now, especially, are realizing they need to learn more or do more or kind of keep crawling forward versus the same thing. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just that self-awareness, to just always, you hear so many coaches talk about, what their athletes don't do or what they, we do this, but, we do leg lifts too, but my kids still do leg lifts that are bad, it's it always comes back to you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just always being able to, and that's, I think, especially working with Enrique, every time we ran into obstacles, we just would sit down in a room and we would just hash it out. And, and we knew that it was something we weren't doing right, that why we weren't getting the girls to react to to our training plan or our coaching style. And we just kind of continue to adapt and be willing to change, and I know we'll touch on it later, but that, in USA Gymnastics as a whole is where I think coaches, really need to continue to strive to be better, is to just adapt to the new age athlete and generation of kids coming up, and how can you reach them? How can you motivate them other than kind of sticking them on the beam and say, you're not getting down until you do it, because those days are gone.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm really happy you said that. I think I had a huge moment. I read Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership, 4 or 5 years ago when I was going through that same phase. It's new gym. And I was like, man, why don't the girls listen? And why aren't they doing this? And why are we so frustrated? And it does come back to everything really is up to you, whether you're, like you're saying, adapting and changing and trying to find how to speak to different athletes, or at the same time, sometimes parents just don't want to listen, or kids don't want to do the work, and other coaches don't want to change. Maybe sometimes it doesn't good fit, and you have to let that go too. That's your responsibility too, is to not dwell on the 1 or 2 problem kids and look at the 14 kids that are working super hard. So in both contexts, it all comes back to you, as you said.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I feel the same way, and even now I still struggle with that, because one of the things that came more naturally to me is the relationship building part of coaching. That's just it's been my strength, and the building my training philosophy has been the part that's been a little bit, more of an evolution. I don't think I've necessarily changed a lot how I treat an athlete when I was 21 years old than I do now, even how I would treat and talk to and train a high school JO athlete. When I went into college, I don't think I really had to adapt and change that aspect of it too much either. But I think the biggest thing is just, with the training style and how you're going to adapt that aspect, you just have to continue to look in the mirror And one of the things, and I think it's maybe your next question, is just, you got to find something that you're really passionate about. You have to find what aspect of training do you feel is most important. Is it the conditioning and the physical prep? I think hopefully most coaches see the value in that. You know what I mean? But maybe you're a coach who your background is dance, in the performance aspect, and the artistry is really what you're passionate about. Then be really, really good at that part of it.
Right.
Make that your passion and hone in on it. Because I think coaches are always looking for like the perfect plan. How many times do I do this drill before I move on to that? And there is no, perfect formula for that stuff. But what it is just trusting and having a plan and just following through. Doesn't have to be a perfect plan, but have a plan that you can follow through with, and that's when I think you get the most buy-in from kids, and where, you see the biggest growth in your coaching. Because if you started in one place and a year later you're in another and you could see your weaknesses and stuff, then you can accurately examine what you need to change as a coach. And, I think that's been the hardest part for me, is being like, okay, this is, especially as a JO coach, this is what there's so much information out there, now with the YouTube and everything, you're just inundated with drills and things that you want to implement into your program, and understanding that, I just really believe in this 5 or 6 drills and I'm going to just hammer, I don't need to do all of them. And so I think in kind of maturation, that's where I kind of grew the most, when I realized this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I believe in, and I'm not changing or wavering anymore,
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I would agree with you. I'm the same way, that the relationship building came naturally to me. And it was more of like the hard technical side of things is what I had to really concrete my philosophy on. And I think it speaks to the volume, though, of like what we were talking about, is like being able to change and understand each athlete and being able to kind of wax and wane, because you have that training plan. But like some days the kids come in and they're like, they had a big test, or they're like, something's going on in their life. And like, you're just not going to get out of them what you have on paper. And if you go bullheaded and you push ahead, you say, no, you still have 2 routines. No, you still have to do 5 of these releases or whatever. You're going to create a lot of friction. And there's definitely a time and a place for that kind of like tough love. Like, yeah, I know you're tired, but we got to grind right here. But at the same time, when you can kind of push and pull a little bit and you can understand the athlete, I think that builds so much trust with them. And it definitely makes your life so much easier down the road with buy-in and with why they think they have to do certain stuff and things like that. But just a side point.
No, absolutely. Right. Because when when you kind of build up that trust bank where you see and recognize that they're struggling that day, and you pull them aside, all right, let's do this. Let's change the plan. If we drill this and do that, then, hopefully Saturday you'll be feeling better and we can attack it then. Then they come in the mindset knowing that, all right, I got what I needed this day, but I'm going to have to step it up the next day. And typically they're up for the challenge then, and they give you what you need. So yeah, I completely agree. And I've never, it's been, there's certainly value. You see that it works when you can be bullheaded. Like, it works for what, a handful of times, right? Where you can get the kid to do what you want. And so you can understand how coaches kind of fall into that trap of knowing that, if you speak a little bit louder or you just get a little bit tougher, that you can get out of them what you want. But again, we're talking about longevity, and just overall health of the athlete. And especially when they get to college, not just the physical health, but how much do they even love gymnastics, after just grind of year after year of just kind of pushing themselves in places that maybe, it was hard for them to get on a daily basis. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think Nick Ruddick is a friend of mine. He is the first one I kind of got like slapped in the face by this. He was like, yelling and being mean and bullheaded is a good, effective motivation strategy. It does work sometimes. And so like he said, like, it's good for the short term, but like when you kind of peel the layers of the onion back and you think about what the 5, the 6, the 10-month plan looks like, well, now you're starting to realize that yelling and that bullheadedness is corrosive, right? It starts to undermine that trust bank. And so you have to really be careful about like how you present your tough love, because just yelling and saying, get on the beam and do 5 more series. Like, yeah, you might get 5 more series out of them today, but that person maybe now has lost trust in you and they don't really want to follow you. Cause like, wow, this person doesn't really care about me as a person. They just want me to be a good gymnast. And like, that really hurts quite a bit, especially for a young kid in the JL level.
Yeah. And I know we're kind of jumping around, but that kind of goes to just as coaches, how do you measure your success? Right. Is it, and I'm sure I don't know if you had a chance to listen to, Coach Val's TED Talk that came out, but I mean, she hit the nail right on the head. Is one Olympic medal or one Olympian in an entire coaching career, is that success? and so you kind of really have to take a step back and see really how you're impacting these young kids, or how you can help mentor these young adults in college, and just continue to point them in the right direction, and feel just as satisfied and fulfilled as a coach, knowing that you have this great, well-rounded athlete and young person, as opposed to, the banners hanging in the gym that show, you can teach a Takachev. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very timely that this has just happened last night, but there was a big like HBO special that came out talking about like the huge spike in ACL tears and youth athlete, like the kind of the over professionalization of youth sports in general,
Yeah,
which I think
I saw you posted that.
is,
I wanted to try to watch it before we got on today.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But it definitely struck a nerve. I mean, honestly, it's kind of a hornet nest kind of video question, because gymnastics is pictured in the video as a big microscope, like kind of example of all of these problems. But it happens in baseball, it happens in dance and swimming and stuff. But gymnastics is a textbook example. But there's like in Boston here, we have 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds getting ACL surgeries. We have, I have so many athletes that have had their second back fracture, they're level 10s, they're like 14, 15 years old, and they just quit. And it's the end because they can't go forward, or OCD issues. And it definitely speaks to the kind of what we're hitting on here is how you measure your success. Is it based on, that 1 or 2 athletes that do super well and go on, or is it the 10 that quit and nobody talked about it? And I'm not saying every gym is like this, but unfortunately, and I know this from the coaching side, is that it's really hard to be guiding yourself morally based on my measure of success is if my kids are doing the best they can, they're working hard, they're making forward progress. And when this is all said and done, they're going to like me, they're going to like our gym, they're going to like the sport, right? Not, did we flip that extra suit at the meet because we wanted to get a bigger score and we busted our ankles, right? Or something like this is an example in my head. But that video like hit really home for me, because I was like, man, this is exactly what's going on.
Yeah. What would make me happy is to see that all of our college athletes, everywhere, want to go back in their club gyms and train for a day or two and visit and hang out in those environments that they left, and there's a far fewer than I expected making that transition, coming from an environment that I felt was healthy. And, we trained hard, and we're trying to have high level, JO athletes, and early on in perfections kind of, development, we were trying to do elite gymnastics, but I felt like it was a healthy environment. But it's, it's still amazing to see so many girls just don't want to go back in. They kind of, part of it is just maturity. They feel like they've kind of graduated on, and they don't, it's to be in that environment with preschoolers running around while they're trying to vault. It's just used to just going in and getting much accomplished. But part of it is too that it just kind of gives them a bad feeling to go back to that, what wasn't necessarily always a great experience, and that's sad, especially coaching club for so long, where you feel like at least in your, from my perspective, I felt like I always had good relationships. I hope that the kids will come back and visit me,
Yep. Yeah. And I guess a lot of this, the biggest picture step back is there's going to be a huge range here in gymnastics, right? Gymnastics is hard, man. Like the stuff we're doing these days is crazy, right? So you're going to have this spectrum of athletes. When you have 20 kids in front of you, you're going to have those few kids that are like super talented. They have great parents. They want to work hard. They can get high level, and they're going to go on and they're going to do level 10 college gymnastics. But then you're also going to have athletes who gymnastics is not their main priority. It's just not what they love to do as their full-time thing. And that's fine, man. Maybe they just want to go level 8 and do high school gymnastics and just be done senior year. That's fine, right? The problem is when I think the coach gets wrapped up and there's insecurity, there's fear of judgment from other coaches about like your self-worth as a coach is how hard the skills are your kids are doing or whatever they're doing. I think that's where the water gets real murky when like goals don't align, right? Coach wants level 10, kid wants level 8 in high school, or you're so scared about what everybody else is thinking about. It's so hard, but you got to let go of that fear of judgment, man. Like that is poisonous.
I absolutely agree. And it's hard too, because even though, the kid might want level 8 in high school gymnastics, that's not always what the parent wants either.
Totally, yeah, very good point.
Because there are definitely some clubs that do it well, and it's hard for club owners and for coaches to develop a program that is all inclusive for all those athletes. Because you see some programs, they do a good job. They take their high achieving or high level athletes with the parents who are super committed and the kids who are hardworking and can be pushed, and they'll group 3 or 4 levels. All component kids who have that same sort of propensity to be like this top level athlete. All right, we'll put them over here, and then have this other group who, they miss a day a week and they're not super committed and they're maybe not as talented. And we're going to group them together because how we coach them is going to be best for them. and they might move a little bit slower, but it's still going to allow them to find the most success later down the road than to be trying to move at the same pace of this other group and maybe not keeping up, and the frustrations are, kind of come into play. So, it's so hard because, parents don't like to feel like their kids aren't necessarily in that top group, right?
Yeah.
Even though if they really took a step back and looked at it, and trusted the coaches, that this could be the best path for them to find the most success and the most happiness in the sport, where they finish level 8 or level 9, and man, but their gymnastics is still safe and it's still technical. And yes, they move slower, but man, they got a lot farther than they would have had they just been frustrated in that top group or try to be pushed, and then they're injured or they quit because they feel like they're a failure,
Yeah, absolutely. And in my experience too, I think the parent issue does come back to, and this is from a podcast I did with Diana and Chelsea from their team podcast, is that she told me that the same thing they have is the same fear of judgment and paranoia with other parents looking at their kids and who's this and who's doing that skill. And it's the same kind of insecurity and fear of judgment. But the antidote to this chaos, which I think is a good way to leave it, is that what you said earlier is you have to be willing to have that hard conversation. You have to say, guys, let's sit in a room and let's have an honest professional discussion about why this isn't working. If it's with the parents and the kids saying like, hey, you said you want to go level 10 gymnastics, but your actions right now just maybe aren't mapping to what you're saying. That's why you're frustrated. Or is this really what you want to do? Do you really love gymnastics still? Do you want to do level 8? And the kid's going to say like, yeah, but I only want to do high school. Or like, I don't feel the urge to go hardcore. I want to go dance. I want to run track too. I want to do all this kind of stuff. And that sometimes that's a hard conversation because the parents like, oh my God, I can't believe that. But it's way better than sweeping it under the rug and like just pushing kids hard enough.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. You got to cut out time a couple times a year with all of your team parents, and you got to sit down and just talk about, where they're going, the direction you see see them progressing, and get their input. And because there's nothing better than, communicating. And when the parents don't find out that they haven't moved up to level 8 or 9 until December, when that cutoff comes, and you haven't communicated at all throughout the fall how they're progressing, and they're expecting them to move up, yeah, that's going to be kind of a slap in the face. And parents, it's hard. They're investing so much in their kids, and resources, the time, the money, everything to allow them to have the best opportunity to be successful in what they know they love to do, And so when things aren't going right and they're not progressing, or they're coming home sad and frustrated, they start questioning whether they're doing the right things, whether the coaches are doing the right things. And that's totally understandable, especially when you're talking about some of these athletes who are trying to do elite level gymnastics and are homeschooling and doing some of the other things required to try to, reach that top level. It makes complete sense that they're feeling anxious about, the progress or the direction their kids are going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely have more empathy now than I ever have for parents, like to give them some love. Like most parents aren't the crazy gym parents that are, they are living vicariously through their kids and pushing super hard. Most parents are just, they want what's best for their kid. They want their kids to be happy and healthy. And you guys have to remember, if you're a coach on this listening, is that you don't spend the other 18 hours a day with the kid, right? So you don't see the kid who's also real frustrated with school and is like really upset at home because they're not progressing. And so parents, like you said, financially are paying a ton of money and a lot of their time, but also they see how much, maybe pain the kid is going through when they're not progressing well or something isn't right. So like definitely have the other perspective in mind too, that it's not always about just like that crazy parent trying to get a trophy for her selfie on Facebook, right? It's about, just honestly wanting to do what's best for the kid. And that's really hard to handle at home sometimes.
Absolutely. And the best thing is just have those conversations that are tough, and if you give yourself enough time, or you cut out, and perfection, we would just not have practice for a few days, and we'd have open slots for parents to come in. And it took time, but you had to understand that sacrificing those training days was absolutely worth it when you kind of put all the parents at ease with the direction that their kid was going, or you had that you knew there was going to be a couple of those meetings that were going to be tough and challenging, but you always ended up better, or you came to you agreed to disagree, and maybe they decided that, somewhere else was the best for their kid, and that's okay. That's okay. Not every program for every athlete, but I guarantee that you leave those discussions with a handshake and agreeing to disagree and mutual respect for each other, that they're doing what's best for their kid, and you're trying to maintain kind of the integrity of your program and the direction you want to go. And there's nothing wrong with that, as opposed to the last minute, no, your kid's not moving up, and then you never see him again,
Yeah. Awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I had something really intelligent I was going to say, but I'm kind of forgetting now. The best thing that I ever did, and I've said this on an earlier podcast, the best thing we ever did in our gym is kind of implement a radical transparency policy where once per year we would not cancel, but we would just not have the last half of practice. We would sit down with the entire girls team on our level, right? So optionals for me or compulsory ever. It's like, guys, what was good about the season? What was bad about the season? What can we do better? Is there anything that you want to tell us directly that you were maybe nervous to tell us in season? And like back to your point of being open, like I've gotten some real harsh conversations from people being like, yeah, you're favoring certain people, or, you're kind of moody when you come to the gym, or you're lashing out at us because maybe you're not happy with your personal life. And I was like, dang, I was like, this is harsh right now. But it was good for me to hear that. And then we had an open conversation about what they were doing. But then we had one-on-one meetings with the kid, 15 minutes, like while people are doing strength or whatever, 15 minutes with each kid, 15 minutes with each parent, half hour. And like, man, that has made a world of difference in terms of not like we've rocket shipped forward and we're winning level 10s, not at all, but we're all much happier. And definitely the parents are cool with kind of the track that we're on.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And it's believing in it and knowing that it's important enough to spend the time to do it. Right.
Yep.
And,
yep.
Kids will, and that's no different than in your training. The kids will make important whatever you make important, and if you sitting down and discussing and communicating is how you move forward when you're kind of, run against some obstacles, then they're going to start to learn how to communicate better too, because they're going to know you're going to listen, and that comes down to the building trust and the relationships and how, more and more, that's just where coaching is going. You have to really believe in that you can't just stand in front of a line of gymnasts and say, go do this, this, and this, and not give them any explanation as to why,
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. Very well said. And so I guess this is kind of on the topic, but obviously as you've lived in the JO world and the college world, what are the biggest kind of differences you see between the training styles there? And for the better reason of that, it probably has to be different when you're younger. You have a little bit more work to do, obviously, but what are the big differences you see there?
Well, I know, we've talked quite a bit. I think it's just the resources, the resources that the athletes have at their disposal to help them in all aspects of their life and training, certainly the full time. And while, not all programs have this, but, to have a full-time athletic trainer, to have a sports site to have, to be able to see a doc pretty regularly and stuff like that, to check in on injuries and rehab, it just allows a lot of times too. I think when kids are coming back or from injuries, or they're feeling like something might be, wrong, they just need to know that they're okay, and so being able to see the trainer and be like, yeah, I think you're all right. We just need to do this. We'll modify that. It allows them to train, without any sort of, they can't pulling back anymore. They know the direction they're going. And that really is one thing that I think in particular I see is, it's hard. It's costly, certainly as a JO athlete, to be running to doctors and PT and stuff a lot. But I think the ones who are realizing that, the coaches, especially, that they're not a PT, and yes, they can find exercises on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's good to be well-rounded and educated and all those things, but to trust that your medical professionals and is something that you have to do at the college level. As a coach, you stay in your lane. You're not telling they're not hurt, you're okay. You should keep going. So many club coaches do. And when kid says my heel kind of hurts, oh, it's just Seavers, you'll be fine. Yeah, but it might be. And then a coach, a doctor puts them in a boot saying it's a stress fracture, and you're like, what the hell? Well, what? Of course, that was what happened. They train on a sore heel for a month. And I, but particular training, I just think they just got to be more efficient. And while they can be, because they're more experienced and it doesn't take them as many turns to get their stuff done, you don't allow them to be inefficient because their bodies can't handle it, especially as you get to the season. All of our work is done in the preseason. You put in the numbers, you build up the strength and the endurance. And then, when you're traveling every week and the girls are managing their school schedules and, losing out on some sleep and having to compete every weekend, especially if they're competing 3 or 4 events, it's just about just managing their bodies and doing as little as possible, while still maintaining, a level that you can go out and perform, but hopefully you've put in the work beforehand, and then you're just able to work those little fine details, which you can work maybe without landing on the floor every single day on your pass.
Sure.
Dude, but the biggest difference, and the thing that I think, the JO athletes learn when they get to college. It's way more fun. Like it's worth all the hard work to get to college and to have the opportunity to compete in that team atmosphere down there on the floor and to be a part of something that's, bigger than yourself type of thing. And, it's funny because as a JO coach in the stands watching college meets and watching like a kid hit a bar routine or a beam routine and the team just kind of erupt, whatever. And you're like, that was a good routine. Yeah. Like she didn't think she was going to hit it. She's been doing it since she was a sophomore in high school. Like, are they that excited? And you get down there on the floor as a coach and you absolutely are that excited,
It's electric.
Like the energy is like palpable. It's so much fun. And so I think we always tell the freshmen coming in, like, you believe me, it's worth it. You want to freshman year, fall semester for any kid adapting, to college, is hard. And so we're just telling them it's just worth it. It's just keep pushing. You'll get through it. You'll adjust. Everything will normalize for you. And when you get to competition, I promise it's going to be fun. And a lot of them think we're lying to them. They think that we're kind of like, but then they get out there and maybe they're not making a lineup and they're on the outside looking in and they're just like, holy cow, you're right. Like I want to be a part of it. And so if you can just get them through that kind of transition and that kind of frustrating time of just kind of figuring out who you are, what you're all about as a freshman in college, how to manage your schedule and your time and how to take advantage of all your resources to put you in the best position to train well every day. Once they do that, man, usually they take off because they realize they really want to be a part of that, as opposed to JO competitions where it's just a little stuffy,
Yeah. A little stale.
Yeah. And while there is a team competition, we all know that all the level 10s who are in the same age group, aren't feeling super bad for their friend when she comes off the beam and they win the meet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sad but true. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And because ultimately, right, the season all comes down to a regional meet that's an individual competition. And do you qualify on JOs and how do you do individually at JOs?
For sure.
So it's hard to kind of go all throughout the invitational season preaching team. And I think maybe the best JO clubs do a really good job of implementing that team concept and doing it for each other. But ultimately, they know that their success is going to be measured not based on the team, but how they do at the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that you made a really good point about the collaboration. It's definitely the hardest part in the JO side is the not having the instant access to multiple people in minds. But at the same time, I do think that we're seeing more of that, which is good. I do think we're seeing more coaches who want to realize like, okay, I'm the coach, but I need like a go-to PT, a go-to like set of medical or some sports people or mental health people. Because I think that, like we said earlier, this sport's just too hard, man. Like this sport is insanely hard. And for you to try to juggle all those plates is going to make yourself pretty miserable. It's just impossible to do those. And you're going to get met with some tough answers. Like when you said that example of the boot, like, there's it's hard, man. Sometimes you gotta rest yourself. You gotta realize these kids are growing and they're going through really hard times and they have a lot of stuff going on. So like, you gotta be patient, but it's ultimately better than you trying to force your way through it and trying to do everything. And then you're just super stressed and the kid's not getting the best progress. Right. So it's happening more, which is good. People should, if you value it, you'll put more time into it. Just like the conversations, if you value collaboration, you'll put more work into it.
Yeah. And that's one thing that Meredith, is just makes her such a great leader of the team, is that she understands where her strengths are, she has many, but she also understands all the other opportunities that Ohio State can provide, these athletes. And I think, so she's all about, hey, the more the merrier, and whoever wants to help this team get to where we want it to go, please be my guest, and to have that mindset, and even the way she leads Randy and I, and how we're always sitting down, and when she's making a decision, usually it's the three of us in a room talking it out. And there's sometimes we disagree, and we talk it out, and sometimes she's like, okay, yeah, this sounds good, fine, let's go ahead and do this. And there's other times where that I feel strongly about this one, we're going to go ahead and do that. And you just say, absolutely, we support you, because she's always so willing to get all the minds in the room that are going to program move forward, that it just makes it super easy to follow her, because she's just so willing to do whatever it takes, so, and I think that's just, where JO coaches kind of they get so protective over their kids. You know, they don't want their kids going to camp. They don't want them to do this. They don't want another coach to give them a correction. And that's kind of the mindset, I think, that, you know, kind of starts building that, you know, kind of that culture that, you know, USA Gymnastics kind of went down that path, you know, for quite a while to kind of come out of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Another like hallmark skill of successful people are people that make really big dents in the world positively. Those that can see multiple points of view and survey all the options and kind of hear what everyone has to say and then make a collaborative decision. Not like you said, unfortunately, which I think still exists in the gymnastics side from the JO point of view, is the bullheadedness of like my way is just like blinders on. Like this is what we do because it's successful a few times. And instead of being like, what do you think? What do you think? What do the kids think? You know, how can we all collaborate and maybe figure this out for the better?
Yeah, I know someone who did that before and it didn't work, so I don't think we should do it. You know, that's
yeah. I've seen that movie. I know how it ends.
Yeah, exactly.
And so kind of continuing on the college path is I thinking about, you know, the number of kids that go to elite versus the number of kids that are in the college route. I think so many more kids, there's more opportunities in college from multiple levels, but more and more kids are wanting to shift their gears towards just getting either a scholarship or just competing anywhere in college. From your point of view, kind of on the JO side, but now being in a college looking backwards, what are things that you think kids need to be thinking about to be successful? And I think obviously the technical side is like you need to be doing the level of gymnastics that's at that school, right? That's a big part of it. But also there's so many other factors that I hear from college coaches that are important. I'm just wondering if you could share some ideas about what you guys kind of consider for people who are in the come up.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, it's so important for these kids to come to college and still loving gymnastics, you know? So figuring out that life balance, you know, where they can, yes, and so many of those kids are just, they live and eat and breathe gymnastics, and that's okay, you know, but it's something that you still deal with your athletes too, you know. In college, once a lot of them aren't going to be professional gymnasts, but no matter what type of athlete they are, when they're done with their athletic career, who are they as a person and where's their kind of self-identity, you know, fall in getting them to still have that other part of their life that they can kind of fall back on. I love reading. I enjoy this. I enjoy that. And it's not just if I can't do level 10 gymnastics or if I don't get that college scholarship, all I worked for is for nothing, you know, and
my life's a mess.
Can't see the bigger picture, you know, is something that's really hard. And so I think is coaches are training their young athletes, you know, in doing those things outside of the gym as a team and encouraging them to, you know, to play an instrument or do those things instead of getting angry when they have a music concert and they have to miss a day of practice. Yeah, it's frustrating as a coach. You know how important it is. But if they'll be more dedicated to their gymnastics, and long term, their longevity, they'll be healthier and happier if they have the opportunity to have those other things in their life that really, you know, give them that balance in that sense where they don't have to stress over if gymnastics isn't going right or if I'm dealing with an injury. Because, you know what, I have my group of friends from school and I still have to play an instrument or I'm into, you know, whatever else. So, and that's something that I think with mental health of student athletes is seems to be going not in the best direction, you know, is because they're putting so much pressure on themselves to be successful. And typically in gymnastics, you get those kind of type A, you know, perfectionist personalities, you know, as it is, you know, and how to balance that. How do you still create this overall healthy young adult, even though gymnastics is so important to them? And as a coach, it's so important to you, and you're trying to help them reach their goals. And, you know, part of that is commitment and being able to do, all right, we know you're outside the gym, you're gonna, you know, we want you to hang out with friends and have that other aspect. But you know what, when you're hanging out with your friends, you're trying to be a great athlete, you might have to be a little bit more aware of what you do and, you know, and the lifestyle you live. You know, you got to lead that athlete lifestyle everywhere, even though you have these other, you know. And so that's really hard to manage that, I think, as coaches and as parents, you know, but you know, when those kids get into college, the ones who I think are the most adjusted to that and have kind of found that balance are the ones who can deal with the struggles of adjusting to college life and know how to, you know, say no to things. And, you know, as they're navigating their college experience, they're a little bit more focused and know who they are a little bit more and maybe don't fall off the right path as often. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, and you touched on a super important point that I think is worth noting is the kind of the mental health aspect. There's definitely a big rise in gymnastics for sure, but in that age group of kids in high school, like just a lot of anxiety and a lot of like angst and depression around like what it is. And Val, I think, summed this up really well for me, and I think it's something I've taken to heart is whether you're a coach or an athlete or a parent, whatever it is, if you tie your sense of self-worth into something external that you can't control, you're setting yourself up for disaster, right? If you're if you're an athlete who's setting, I have to get a 9.5 and I have to get this all around, then I have to do well at nationals and get this scholarship. Well, there's so many factors outside of your control that you can't really, always have the best input on. You can influence them, right? But as a coach, if you say like, I'm happy and I'm a good coach if this kid hits this routine, right? And as a parent, I'm good if this kid does this, blah, 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 right? Well, you're really just setting yourself up to be disastrous because you don't know if you're going to control those things versus Val learned from John Wooden, who told me, which is, your definition of success and your worth should be, I did everything I possibly could to influence a positive outcome. And I know that when I take my grips off and I go home, that I did everything I possibly could, like you said, which is sometimes leading that athlete lifestyle outside the gym, which is like, oh, I went to bed a little earlier, or I didn't go out and I just stayed home and did my homework because I have a meet coming up next weekend and I know I have to kind of be ready. So you should try your best to live that. Personally, that's helped me a lot, but also like teach the kids that it's like, I don't love you more or less as a gymnast because you made your bar routine, right? I like it because you're here every day and you're working hard and you put in a good attitude and effort. And I think that's something that we all need to just check ourselves on a little bit. And this perfectionist number-based game of gymnastics is why we're really doing this.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And, and it's college gymnastics, it's still right at the end of the day, sports about winning, so that's why, you get to that point where coaches, they fall on the wrong side of that line because they want to keep their jobs, and then they start making tough decisions or they get closer to that line. And so, but I think a lot of that is because they haven't explored enough how to motivate and reach the athletes at a level that's different from what the norm has been, right? Which has been kind of point your finger in their face, yell at them, scream at them, tell them you got to do it. We're coming in at 6 a.m. and we're going to run, like that's always been the way, or, and again, like we talked about, to some level of success, that people are finding that. And that's kind of what happened in gymnastics. You got that kind of European influence that came into the States and heck, we were great, but there was a lot of kind of collateral damage because of it. And I think now people are realizing, and as the culture changes, man, how many different elite athletes are there now for the U.S. who come from programs who maybe never even had top level 10s, but the reason that they're being so successful is because, they're adapting some of the philosophies that the national staff, are implementing at camps, and then they're coaching in a way that's right for them, And that's something that Val had, I think, said on your podcast, or I definitely heard her say that when she started coaching, and was authentic to who she was, is when she kind of became a leader worth following, you know what I mean? And I think that's what's so hard for coaches. And I even think about, if I ever have the opportunity to be a head coach, the relationship part and the part that I feel like comes so naturally to me, will I be able to maintain that as a head coach? Because in your head, you think, well, you got to stand in front. You kind of have to be the one that lays the hammer down a little bit more and this and that. Will I be allowed to my strengths still come through in a head coaching role the way it can as an assistant, And I think the answer is yes, but that's just something that will evolve, I think, and I'll learn as I go if I ever get that opportunity. But I think that's one of the hardest parts is just being authentic to who you are. And I don't think, if authenticity to you is being really mean and hard on kids, then you probably shouldn't be a coach,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would agree, man. I think that I'm happy to see, fortunately, I work a lot internationally and nationally. I'm happy to see coaches who are, like you said, aware of themselves. They're having hard conversations. They're collaborating more. They're open-minded and they're kind of getting new information. And they're taking that approach of knowing there's another way besides just bullheadedness. And they're thinking more about their relationships and the long-term plan and riding that line between pushing and pulling and things like that. But we see a lot of kids who are doing very well from the JO up to the college level and who are having a good experience. And I'm happy to see that we're definitely seeing a change now. Unfortunately, it came after it was a forced hand with so much chaos, but at least it is happening. We're having a conversation. I think that the more the more we can look at the problems directly and have an honest conversation about what mistakes we made or what needs to change, that's the only way we're going to make forward progress. And I think that unfortunately, some people still don't want to have that conversation, and they don't even want to listen to the fact that maybe we royally screwed something up, but it's not going well. So we should probably pivot a little bit here.
So let me ask you this. So how do you feel, because I still think the majority of coaches at the JO level and who are trying to develop high-level athletes still know that the core and the most important time of development is, you got to get your hands on these kids early, and that physical preparation is certainly the most important part to allow them the opportunity to do learn skills successfully.
Yep.
But how do you see, because I know you're working a lot in, the load management side of things and trying to shift kind of the culture, but how do you feel that the JO program can really, what does the shift need to be in your mind, because in the men's program, it's different. And I think it's somehow in their culture, they know, well, the guys, they're not going to be strong enough to do the skills and to do the strength parts. So they're not going to develop into who they need to be until they're out of school. Okay. And that's just the understanding. So okay, we can develop the kids later, and the basics can be, the groundwork and the foundation can be laid. And then once they kind of get past in puberty a little bit, boom, then their skills will catch up. Do you think that's kind of what it needs to be for the women, where they can really excel and have their long-term success? Elite level, let's say we're still talking elite.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that there's a few layers to it that I'll go through. So one is that you definitely need to work hard when you're young. There's no doubt about it. Like, I think that I get a bad perception that we don't want to train super hard, but Tim's work and the workload stuff has shown that if you train hard intelligently for a longer period of time, you can build resilience against injury, which is great, right? So I think that when these kids are young, like when they're like 9 to 12, probably it starts, is that you can train hard. There's so many ways, and I've learned this from Nick and Tom Meadows on the guy side. There's so many ways to train hard and intelligently with like basics and physical preparation and strap bar and spotting belts and pin pits and soft surfaces. There's so many ways to develop these super high level skills, but spare the joints and spare the mental. Like a 12-year-old is terrified to do some of these skills, man. Like, you have to realize that. Like, they might put up a front, but you have to recognize their maturity physically and mentally is probably not nearly at the capacity to handle some of these big release moves or double flipping skills. Right. And so you can train these things very well, and you can push them super hard and get them physically prepared. But I very much agree with what Tom said on his podcast, was that you have to just be aware of the fact that maybe most of this stuff shouldn't happen until after puberty. Some kids that happens at 15, some kids that happens at 12 to 13, whatever. But I think it comes down to the parallel here between the individual taking responsibility and then the national body or the policies taking a little bit more of a firmer stance, right? So I think that you can't have one without the other. People blame the opposite side, right? The individual say it's USAG's fault or the FIG's fault, and then the FIG says, well, the coaches need to take responsibility. It's both people's fault. I think as coaches, you need to have these conversations about, no, we're not going to do a double pike just yet on hard because you're still pretty young. And if we start it now, you got to do it all year long, right? And then every year after that, we're not going to do a full on hard just yet. We're not going to, these big releases, we're not going to do your shoulders are probably still developed. So the individual coaches need to take a better long-term view and say, like, okay, we can still work these things, but maybe not compete them. And John Horton said that with Tom, said like there were tons of times when he was like, our goal is not to do this skill, not to win this competition, because we have a bigger goal down the road. Like, that's the individual approach we need to take, develop the skills, do it really well, but then compete them later. But in the national body level, I think we need to have much more firmer and clearer guidelines about, maybe we don't let kids start doing level 10 till a certain age. Maybe we don't start letting them compete in elite until a certain age, because, like, I'm sorry, man, a 13-year-old doing level 10 skills is a long, long road to get to college and still be healthy. And so I see, unfortunately, a lot of young aspiring elites and level 10s who I think could have done amazing if they just didn't compete super hard skills until they were 15, until they got stronger and kind of got more mentally with it a little bit. So individuals need to take more responsibility, but also the national bodies need to put firm guidelines on either ages or hours in the week or other mandates around like who can compete certain meets. Because personally, for me, I think that we're getting out of control with the hopes and the elites and the tops and things of that nature. I think that education is amazing. And I've been a part of some amazing camps where people do that really well. But asking some of these young kids to flip your Jankos to hard when they're really young or do these big release moves, I think gets a little dicey. And I think that starts we put them on a hamster wheel of expectation and of next level. And I'm like, all right, good, we got 16-year-old elite, junior elite. And then all of a sudden she's gone because she's broken, quit, and burnt out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I participated in the TOPS program for a long time, both at Buckeye and at Perfection. And yeah, what it taught me as a coach is when you were put on a timeline, right? When we're going to test these skills and that you can push the athletes, and man, like they can achieve a lot more than you thought they could based on the fact that you knew you needed to compete this at this date. And so it teaches you that the athletes are capable of more than maybe what you think. But there's very few of those athletes that you're trying to take to that level that are actually fully prepared to do it at the time that allows them to do it completely successful or as technical as you're hoping that they would learn it. But you're trying to at some point just say, well, we got to go on your own, do that swing half turn on the single rail by yourself because you're ready to do it. You've spotted enough. Let's go. You got it. And then they do it, and then you're excited, and then they have it. And obviously it gets better over time. But, like you said, that's just the bar example, but there is the Yurchenko, you're ready to go. And then that's how many round offs off of a springboard at 8 or 9 years old, all the way up to, at the elite level, not to make it into college, but just to be 16 years old, to be eligible for senior elite and to represent the U.S., that's a long time to stay healthy. You better make it at 16 years old. You know what I mean? Because you'll probably be around the next, quadrennium because of, the amount of impacts that your body's been taking since 8 or 9. But certainly that the benefits is the same way it holds you accountable to a skill level, TOPS. It also holds you accountable to the physical preparation aspect of it, and maybe that would be the middle ground, right? Just eliminating the skill development part that's attached to the physical, the preparation physically, in the conditioning, all those physical abilities are still important, kind of barometers that you shouldn't have as a coach to say, all right, my athlete is strong enough, she's prepared, she's flexible enough to do this skill correctly. We can move on to the drills, and we can move on to the, to the soft circuit, or developing that double back or Yurchenko, in a way that's, a less impact, but moving them in the right direction. And I agree with you. It's just, and certainly it's hard to say whether it was USA Gymnastics, whether it was NCAA and the recruiting rules that allowed colleges, to recruit middle schoolers. All those things I think came into play and kind of got us to where we are now, where we feel the only way is to be a level 10 by the time you're in 8th or 9th grade. And that gives you 4 or 5 years to master your skills, and then hopefully by the time you get to college, it's so easy that you're going to be super consistent, and you'll have the execution that you need to perform and be successful at the NCAA level. But again, there's a lot of athletes out there, and the ones who make it to NCAA and in the Division I level, that's great. But there's a lot that don't make it because of that process, like we're talking about. How can that be altered? And hopefully we start seeing that. Hopefully coaches don't feel as stressed to develop a level 10 athlete by middle school. If they know that they're not going to get an offer till June 15th after their sophomore year, that coaches, whether it was, certain schools hold on to scholarship, man, we're going to just hold on to one, not speaking for Ohio State specifically, but you see great seniors who end up, returning after injury or late bloomers, and are finding a lot of success later in high school, and then are peaking in college, and really in the stride, kids that you never heard of in JO, and how many more athletes can find similar success if they can just, at their own pace progress, instead of trying to feel like they got to kind of fit this mold of hitting certain, certain barriers or benchmarks at certain ages, where they just develop. And when you're level 10 and you're successful, the opportunities will be there for you, even if you're a senior. And that's hard to get parents to buy into that too, and coaches as well, because they get anxious when that's what they've been working towards for so many years.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of bring it full circles, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that early talent ID and kind of what you're saying in terms of like developing the physical prep side, but I think it's more about the application of what we're doing with the systems themselves. And that's way above my pay grade to consider that, because I don't work in elite gymnastics, but I think that that's a big piece of it too, is like, there's a way to have the system in place to get because the kids that definitely have that really fast track and they're really naturally talented, you want to get them the resources they need to be successful, which is coaches and camps and clinics and education for people and stuff. I get that, but that's one thing that I think is there. But the other pieces too, the things that are probably driving some of these symptoms that we're having headaches with, is I think we really need to consider too about, training full year round and like how much we're doing competitively versus not. I think if we elongated the preseason and condensed the actual competition season,
Yeah.
that would be a big part of it. Because I know there's a lot of money in meets, and I know it's fun to go to meets and do well, and you need a lot of time to develop your athlete before states, regionals, whatever. But, if you start competing in, early part of the year and you go 7 months all the way through and you take 1 week off and you come back to summer, like that, man, that is crazy, right? So investigating not like a complete 3 months off, but like cross training or deloaded training or a month off and then some other stuff like that needs to be played around with more, because if you stack on year-round training plus the kids are early specializing really young, and then it becomes this professionalism where you have these barrier landmarks to get to, it's a complete recipe for disaster. And that's why you see these kids with back fractures, OCD, ankle problems, like these kids that get to like 14, 15 and they're like, God, I feel like I'm 100 years old, right? It's because we pushed all this volume on them when they're really young. So things like that, workload limits, recommendation changes.
They're reaching their kind of peak skill level right as they're hitting puberty and their body's changing, and then they wonder why there's all these, injuries associated with it,
Yeah. And like you said, it's not only about the physical stuff, but it's like, it's just mentally exhausting to be a 14-year-old who's training level 10, trying to have a social life, trying to get their schoolwork done, trying to go to bed, trying to have a family life, do something else besides gymnastics that's, not in the gym. I think I unfortunately have seen a lot of athletes who even did the perfect line of success where they went the route that we're talking about. They got their scholarship, whatever. Now they're just like, ugh, they're just like exhausted. You know what I mean? Like just let JOs be over, man. Just get me to college. Like I'm tired of this.
And I think there's a certain aspect of that will always be there, right? I mean, you can't completely eliminate that. Just I'm ready for the next step, for what's next.
Yeah.
Especially for the athlete who's that talented, who reached that level 10 and had success at an early age, and so yeah, some kids you can't even hold them back because they're that talented. It doesn't make sense to keep them at level 8 or level 9. So so I think you just have to make sure at that point as a coach, all right, you've just dominated JOs for 3 or 4 years. You're training 15, 12 hours a week. Come in your few days a week, make sure you're staying fit, and make sure you don't have to train the same as everyone else who might be your age, who's still trying to reach that level. And to have that flexibility as a program to know, and I know some clubs who've done that, we're like, everyone's training this, and this, unless you've reached this kind of pinnacle, and then you don't train this extra day, because you don't need it. You don't need it. And I think that's where you can kind of maybe stem some of that attitude towards, oh, well, I get Fridays off. I could still go to football games. I could still do this and that because, I've kind of accomplished enough that, or at a level where, I can maintain. And then when I get to college, then I'll, kind of have that new lease on the sport and be able to enjoy it again in a way that I did before, when it was new and exciting and reaching JOs was great. And obviously that's not for all athletes. Some are continue to stay completely motivated all through their senior year. And, I was 7th at JOs last year. I want to make JO national team. And that's great. But we understand that that's not every athlete, and that's certainly not every athlete who's competing in Division I right now too. There's different personalities and different motivation levels. And as a coach, you got to just learn what kind of makes those kids tick and be willing to adapt to each of those styles of athlete and see if you can get them all to kind of max out what they have left.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it popped into my mind on the positive side of things that are going well, like you mentioned, is the recruiting stuff has changed. That's making a big dent and stuff like that. But the other piece too that I think is making a big difference, and I talked to Tom about this on the podcast, was we're seeing the reason that the men's team and the men's feeder program is more successful, they can peak later, is because it's just the brutal reality is that the open-ended system in college scoring allows them to keep working harder skills in through college and mature. Look at Sam McCulloch, went right through Michigan and then went on. Like half the friggin' national team is from a college program. Unfortunately, just because of, I don't know why. Like there's so many things. The 10-0 system is just more fan base. You can get more money from sponsorships because people understand it. And like that is a big driver of, I think, why people are struggling to peak later and go later, because they don't have that ability to open-ended work through. But thankfully, we're seeing the Michaela Skinners, the Trinity Thomases of the world who are doing a little bit of both. And I think that's starting to change the mold a little bit. I think if people realized you could go through college and train your elite skills and then possibly still make, an international assignment or something like that, that would change. Okay, if my goal is to maybe get into college and work harder skills, maybe I won't need to go to level 10 super hard till sophomore year, or maybe I can push those skills a little bit later because I'll have good coaches in college that can still help me out. Like, I think that's a big factor as well, but just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, unfortunately, there's just, again, it's going to come completely down to those athletes, who are in college and they know that that's their goal, because let's say they haven't really developed a lot of those elite high level skills at all. That's going to be a lot of time in the gym, and there is going to be some dedication well beyond in the summer. It's completely voluntary workout. It's not like as a coach you say you have to be here this time and you're going to have to do this number of double doubles in order to eat it successfully and safely. Nope, do it again. All right, you're struggling today. I know you don't want to really do it, but sorry, we're going in the resi and we're going to do a couple more. And there is that process as a coach where you've got to push them to, if they want those high level skills. And you can't do that as a college coach. You know what I mean? Yep. So it has to come fully from them. And that's what it should be, right? Because what other elite sport, where you're trying to teach kids how to be an elite athlete at 12 years old, what other sport really demands that from kids? Where your elite sprinters who are in college or beyond, they understand exactly what it takes to be an elite athlete, and they're choosing to do it on a daily basis. They're passionate about it. It drives them. They get the thrill of improving and all those things that come out. But you don't have anyone telling you to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You might have a coach who's pushing you and driving, but at any point you say, you know what, that's not for me, then you don't have to do that anymore. And what gymnastics seems to be the one sport where you're having to try to teach a kid what it means to be an elite athlete, and they're not choosing to do that. They just know that they want to please you as a coach, and they're going to do whatever you say. You know what I mean? And at some point, there is, a lot of kids who just decide, that this isn't for me, and they just choose to drop out of the sport altogether, as opposed to, man, if you didn't choose that path of elite at all, you might have been a really successful college gymnast someday. So just kind of, it's tough. I was definitely there with some young athletes who you're pushing, and that they can do it, and physically they're so talented, and they have those days where you could just tell they don't want to be there, and it's hard. It's hard as a coach, knowing that it's just you gotta keep pushing. Ladies, you'll be all right. And I think that's what coaches are in the process of kind of right now is, all right, how do we adapt our style and still allow ourselves to have these high level athletes that the U.S. has had for so long. And I think they're doing a good job. I mean, from
I would agree.
There's a lot of that coaches and programs out there now who are learning that there is another way. And I think you're going to see this next generation of athletes hopefully write a lot of books down the road of how their experiences were great, as opposed to not so great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think thankfully now we're seeing that, like you said, people are realizing there is another way we can try something different. I mean, initially it was just terrifying to try something so different and not know what was going to happen, if we're going to lose success or if it's not going to work. But I think we really have no option but other than to try something new. And I think I agree with you. I think in 5 years from now, we're going to see a wave of coaches and a wave of athletes and a wave of parents who took the chance and tried this little different style of a later peak age. And they tried a different style of not competing so hard, so young, and collaboration and self-awareness and communication. And I think we're going to see a lot of athletes who, even if they don't reach their goal, they're going to be much happier with their experience, which is really good. And I think we're going to see a lot of athletes who can get to that high level and can get that college scholarship and still enjoy it. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm either a good gymnast or I'm miserable all the time. There's not like an in-between here. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, right. And usually the gymnasts are the most happy, are the ones that are just healthy in the moment and finding competitive success. You know what I mean? It feels like all hard work is worth it, because potentially, the in-gym atmosphere and just the daily grind is just, it's not always fun, and that's something that, again, I think kids learn that it doesn't have to necessarily be fun on a daily basis for you to really enjoy the whole process of what the sport of gymnastics brings, and how much you learn and grow as a person from it. And I think that's what happens in those last couple of years of successful athletes who are ready to move on, who are like, I'm over it. It's because they figured it out. They know that it comes with this grind, and it's not necessarily fun on a day-to-day basis, to get your 10 minutes on tramp when, at the end of practice or whatever, even though the women should be spending a lot more time on tramp, right? Yeah. But that sort of thing, I think that's the biggest thing that you can hope that these kids can, at the end of the day, at least understand that it might not be fun, but the success who I am as a person, how I've grown, the success I have at meets is what I can take at the end of the day. And it didn't have to come with coaches kind of, with the bullheadedness and the stuff we've been talking about.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Well, I didn't realize it, but an hour has passed. This is fantastic. However, I think that we've hit on pretty much all the stuff that we had in a roundabout way, which is good. But I guess my last question is do you have any parting advice or wisdom for the people out there, coaches or athletes or stuff like that, kind of advice is either continuing from the conversation about how USAG is changing and the sport is changing, but also just from your experiences?
Yeah, I know you've had some other coaches in the past kind of say similar things, but it's just slow is better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That just understand that having a level 10 team just by name or, by its status isn't necessarily what's going to make you a great coach, to really buy into that physical preparation, that if a kid can't do a really good round up at handspring lat with their head still and set their hands up and rise and then teaching them a full probably isn't the next step. You got to keep hammering that stuff home, and it's really hard when a kid can get a full if you keep pushing them to do it. But at some point they're going to hit a wall and their development will stop, that the foundation is everything. And you got to believe that, and then I guess, what I kind of mentioned before is find what you're passionate about in your coaching. And that was something that Enrique really, told me, like, what is it about, if you're a vault coach, what do you believe is going to make your kids the absolute best on ball? If you believe it's leg power and leg strength, then develop it and be really consistent about it and have a program that, that everyone looks at and be like, man, your kid's legs, you guys are powerful. If that's what it is, if you think it's, obviously there's more than just that, but whatever it is that you find important, make sure that you're consistent in your approach, and the kids will make it important too. And that's how you have a system, right? That's how you develop your system and your culture is by being consistent in your approach, and the kids will believe in whatever you believe in because they don't know anything, but and the last point I'll make is I think that, talked a little bit about, finding those handful of drills or whatever it is that you believe in and just hammering it home. And sometimes you hear coaches say, well, then it gets boring. Well, then it's your job as a coach to keep it fun. You know what I mean? It's your job to bring the enthusiasm and the energy and get the music going and be moving around and be hands-on and make sure that they're understanding that, man, you did that drill for the last month and it's getting better and better and better. And now it's 6 months later and the drill is perfect. And every time you see them do it right, give them props for doing it right. And they'll continue to put in the energy and effort into it if they know you're recognizing that they're working hard at it. And that's, I think, where you really see the most disciplined programs and athletes is where you don't set up 6 drills one day and another 6 the next. You set up your 5 or 6 drills, and those are your go-to, and you hammer it home, and you figure out a way to make it fun every day for them.
Yep. Absolutely, man. I couldn't say it better myself. I think that was great parting advice. So, man, thanks so much for the time. I think that was jam-packed full of good stuff.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with your season. Ours will be kicking off here in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
I'll be looking out. My favorite thing to do is to take screenshots of the coaches that I know and text them in the middle of the meet and be like, man, you look great right now.
Yeah, that's right. Cool, yeah. All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Yep.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much. We'll get this chopped up and we'll put it up soon.
Excellent. Talk soon. Thanks.
See you, man.
Bye-bye.